Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yaumiddin. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome every single one of you once again to our Ramadan Daily Dose by Mercy Mission. And welcome once again to our Merciful Monday. And today we have a special session with you. And that session today is titled Living with Allah's Mercy. And with us we have our beloved Ustadh Anisul Haque. Hayakallah, Ustadh.
Barakallah fiqh.
So, Ustadh, where we are right now, it's 10 p.m. I'm in Malaysia right now. And where you are in Texas, I believe it's 9 a.m. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So you've just begun your fast and we're pretty much just done with our Tarawih. So if you see me drinking water, don't get surprised or shocked.
No worries, no worries.
Barakallah fiqh. I remember with Sheikh Ala, he was doing his live sessions and it was 10 a.m. where we are, and it's 10 p.m. in Canada. And while he was doing those sessions, he had a sip of water and I was like, Sheikh, ittaqillah.
Yeah, mashallah. It's the power of the internet, right? You have access to all the time zones.
Yes, mashallah, alhamdulillah. So, Ustadh, the Mercy Mission Committee have a few surprise questions for us. And so we'll begin this session with those surprise questions. I have a bad feeling about this, but inshallah, let's give it a try.
So how do you want to do it? Do you want to answer the question first and then maybe I'll answer the question?
Okay, perhaps you can start with this one. What's your best moment during this lockdown?
Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. So also, assalamu alaikum to everyone out there, to everyone listening in. I hope everybody had a good fast today. And the last 10 nights are upon us, and inshallah, we're all giving it our best. We're all sprinting towards the finish line, inshallah, so that on Eid we can eat good and get lots of rest, inshallah. So my best moment during the lockdown, and sorry, excuse me, just 1 second. There's something going on in the back. My apologies. Okay, so best moment during this lockdown, I would have to say is that, it was strange. So many people, I can imagine, were probably upset that Ramadan was going to be spent in lockdown and that they wouldn't be able to go to the masjid, they wouldn't be able to go and attend, halaqas and durus and all of these things and talks and really get that Ramadan feeling that people get every single year. And especially in the West, because you don't have that overall environment throughout the city. And especially like me and my family, we were looking forward to spending Ramadan in Kuala Lumpur, because we had previously been able to spend a couple of Ramadans in Medina as well, and of course, there's nothing like spending Ramadan in Medina. It's like
mashallah.
If anyone can manage, inshallah, after everything is taken care of and we're able to travel safely and spend time in Makkah and Medina again, after this whole pandemic is over, inshallah, whoever needs to be able to go and perform Umrah during the month of Ramadan, if possible. It's highly recommended, and the reward is immense. And just spending Ramadan in Makkah, it's so busy and there's so many people at one time, and you feel just you can feel slightly overwhelmed. But when you're in Medina, you just feel so calm and peaceful, and it's such a beautiful feeling when you see people and even children coming to you, running to you, trying to get you to sit at their sufra or in their row to come break your fast, and you just it feels so amazing. So we know that's not the case in every single Muslim city, but we do know that Ramadan is special in every single Muslim country. So we were looking forward to that in Kuala Lumpur as well. Like we always hear about the Eid Bazaar, or not the Eid Bazaar, but like the Ramadan, the like the night market. What do you call it in during Ramadan?
Yeah, Ramadan Bazaar. Yeah,
The
yeah.
Ramadan Bazaar, yeah, we heard about that. And just we wanted to see how things were. We heard that, like in some parts, actually, I actually heard that, I think it's in Bukit Jalutong. I heard that the main masjid there, they actually send out like a van to go and pick up people to go to take them to the masjid to pray Taraweeh and stuff like that. And
MashaAllah.
like we were looking forward to seeing some of these things. And so th- but even regardless of all of those things, in spite of all of those things, once Ramadan started, we got into a routine, and we got into a schedule. And as a family, me, my wife, and my children, we we really enjoyed it, where we were able to focus on each other, and focus a little bit more on ourselves, and we didn't have to worry about going out too much because we couldn't. We were forced to stay inside. And getting into that routine, just it felt so nice, because we would wake up together for suhoor, and then pray fajr together, and we would break our fast together. And even if I have to give a talk, like right now, I would still be at home. And it was just, I don't know, it felt very calming, and it felt very peaceful, regardless of everything else that was going on outside. So it was kind of like we made our own little bubble inside our home, and we were able to decorate the home and all. And these are things that people
Yeah,
do
yeah.
all year round anyways, but it feels kind of like there's a little bit of hustle and bustle with Ramadan, as it is, because then you have to, when you're breaking your fast, you have to think, okay, I can't eat too much, because then I'll be too tired for Taraweeh. I have to quickly break my fast and pray Maghrib and get ready so that I can go to the masjid, pray Isha, get ready for Taraweeh. And especially for myself, like this was a big this was a big relief for me and my family, because on a normal basis, I'd be leading Taraweeh, so I only break my fast with a date and some water, because if I get too full, then you can imagine it's hard to lead Salah
It
when
is. It
when
is.
your stomach is so full, right? The Prophet ﷺ said we have to
So
leave 1/3 for air, but your stomach it shrinks while fasting, so you still your 1/3 becomes much
becomes
smaller.
less.
Yeah, it becomes even less. It maybe becomes like 1/6 or 1/9. Who knows? Wallahu alam. But uh, so it was a
MashaAllah.
relief, not just but especially for my family, because and when I say that, I mean my wife, because she has to help me with all of this, like because maybe I'm preparing for Taraweeh and preparing for talk or whatnot, and this is every single night, and I have to rush. I have to be one of the first people at the masjid to make sure that I'm not late for Isha, I'm not late for Taraweeh. and
Oh,
and
okay.
uh,
MashaAllah.
and it be instead of having to worry about any of that, we could take our time, we could relax, we
Mm.
prayed at home together. And when our kids were small, my son, he's gonna be 8 in a couple of months. But when he was a
Oh,
baby, my wife did not take him to the masjid, because she didn't want to disturb the other people, right?
okay.
Even because it's the duty of the parents to have to stay with the child. But and what we tell people, like especially in America, what we tell people is that if your spouse really wants to go to the masjid, your wife really wants to go to the masjid for Taraweeh, maybe just take turns, right, watching the kids. You don't have to take turns staying at home, but take turns watching the kids. with a baby and me leading Taraweeh, I can't really take a turn watching the baby, right? So
MashaAllah.
it was really nice for all of us to be able to be together. And um, even though I wanted to be able to take my son to the masjid for Taraweeh while I was leading, because of course I've taken him, but I wasn't leading. Like in Medina, or some of the years that I spent like half and half in Medina, half in Houston. I wouldn't lead that year, but I could still take my son. But this was the first time that he could be there, and I would be leading as well. But even if it was at home, but all of this really, it felt so nice, and it felt so peaceful, and we had this routine going. And the routine broke a little bit once we came to Houston, because then we had to fly out, and that was a little stressful flying during this whole situation. But alhamdulillah, we made it here safe. We've
Alhamdulillah.
finished our 14-day quarantine, and
Oh, so you just got to Houston before all this quarantine, before this
I
lockdown.
no, I got here. It's been 2 weeks. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Well,
So upon landing, I had to we had to do a mandatory self quarantine. Like we could do it at home, right? We just had to inform them that this is
okay.
where we're staying. So we just got done with quarantine, and we're hoping that these last 4 or 5 nights now we can hopefully get back into that type of schedule, and get that type of feeling back, because for 2 weeks we were jet lagged and traveling, unpacking, and getting settled in. It just kind of broke it. But I would have to say that that was probably the best moment once Ramadan started, and
Nice.
we had that uh, schedule going for a good. So if today's 25th and it's been 14 days, then yeah, we got about like 10, 11 days of that schedule, and it felt amazing, and it was so peaceful. And this in and of itself was a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because so many things were taken away from us during this
Yeah.
Ramadan,
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
The Haramain was taken away from us. People
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
plan people plan to go to Umrah,
Umrah. Yeah.
especially during Ramadan. That was
Mm.
taken away from people. but but even then, and I know it wasn't myself as well. I saw like reactions from people online as well, that they were making the most of it, and they were feeling very good about it. So
Mm.
alhamdulillah, this was a ni'mah, this was a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that even though it seems like the world's falling apart on the outside, hopefully all of the Muslims, or of course not all the Muslims around the world, because a lot of our brothers and sisters are facing oppression even during this time. But those of us that have our freedoms, alhamdulillah, we were still able to um, make the most of it, and feel that sense of calm and peace, and enjoyment, and fulfillment that comes with Ramadan. So sorry, that was such a long answer, but it was
MashaAllah.
such a it was that was one of the things that surprised me so much, that I guess that's why I had so much to say about it. But
Yeah,
um,
alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. It sounds like it was a good enlightenment for you actually, yeah, in a way for your
yeah, no,
family as
no,
well.
like it's this is really a once in a lifetime experience, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this isn't something we have to witness next year.
For
But
sure. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, that hopefully we can go back to a regular Ramadan next year. But this was a
inshallah.
once in a lifetime experience, and I was surprised that we were able to make the most of this Ramadan in this manner. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with the internet. Of course it can be a curse, and it can be a blessing depending on how you use it. And
Yeah, absolutely.
so many people used it for good. Right?
True.
Every single day, maybe even every hour of the day, you can find
A class.
some class,
Yeah.
some reading of Quran, some reading of Hadith, something going on the
Amazing.
internet.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah,
Some dawah organization, some school, some institute is doing something
that's
all
true.
hours of the
MashaAllah.
day.
Yeah,
And
mashallah.
subhanallah, it's just I want to hear from you as well. Akhi, like what
Sure.
what was your best moment as well?
Sure. I definitely, if one stands out, it would be having to pray in Jama'ah with the family. Basically, it's just me and my wife and I, because my son's only 2 years old. Honestly speaking, one of the things that I was a bit
Inshallah.
worried was because of this restricted movement order, the masjids was going to be closed, and I was very worried because we
Mhm.
go very frequently, and our son, he was only 2 years old, but we always bring him there because I want to train him. So that used to be like the father and
Oh,
son bonding time. So I was wondering, like, oh man, there goes my bonding time. So, but alhamdulillah, praying at home was a big blessing because he listened to all the recitations, and I could see him even at this young age. He could pick up those words. So I mean, this like out of nowhere. I think last week, mashallah, he did the iqamah. Like what? Where did he
oh,
get that
mashallah.
from? Mashallah.
Mashallah,
So,
mashallah.
and one of the things that kind of I was a bit worried as well going into this was that since I'll be spending time with the family all the time indoors, I was worried on myself, like how will I be like managing this time now that like 24
Mhm.
hours I'm with them. But alhamdulillah, we worked it out. There was an adjustment phase, but it was really fantastic that now we got to know each other on a much more personal level, and especially for my wife and I. So she has to be like my team member and my the master chef, and
Yeah.
she we have to switch roles and we have to have this common understanding and we have to work things out. So alhamdulillah, that brought us closer as well. So it's a huge blessing, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, good. Uh, brief answers. We were told to give brief answers. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Sure.
But yeah, no, no, subhanallah, and we do tend to take for granted, or we don't realize um, how much children, especially at a young age, even from 1 or 2 years old, how much they can really really pick up and understand, and even maybe if they don't understand it, but they can still they can see it and they can repeat it, and
Yeah, yeah.
it does start from a young age, like you can maybe from the moment they're born, you can start reciting Quran to them, and they might be able to pick it up because they hear it so much.
Yeah,
So
amazing, mashallah.
okay, what
Okay, so
is your
now,
favorite? Now I answered first last time. You can answer first this time, inshallah. What is your favorite Eid food or meal?
okay, I think this one's easy for me. It's satay. You
Okay.
familiar with satay, Ustadh? The meat skewers?
Yeah, the skewers,
Yeah.
yeah, mashallah.
So,
My mashallah. My favorite Eid food or meal would be my mother's halim. Do you know halim,
oh,
the Indian dish, the slow cooked, it's like it's really thick. There's meat inside of it, and I think some like lentil and starch or something, but
oh, wow.
it's I love my mother's halim. Like
MashaAllah.
I would take that. I would take that over any restaurant's halim. So
MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah.
alhamdulillah. So
This is a nice one. What's one thing that made you smile today?
considering I woke up not too long ago. uh, well, so far, speaking here has made me smile today.
Alhamdulillah,
Um,
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. Before that, I would say, well, I guess if you count me eating suhoor as part of my day today, but I hadn't slept all night, so I don't know if that really counts.
Okay.
I don't know. During suhoor time, me and my wife were sitting next to each other and eating, and then something happened, and it made me smile. It was a bit funny to me, and uh, yeah. So how about you, Seth?
All right. The one thing that made me smile in a moment where I'm not supposed to smile is while my wife and I were praying. Our son was playing with his toys. Suddenly, out of nowhere, just said "La ilaha illallah." So I was
Oh,
like, "Oh,
mashallah, mashallah.
where did that come from?" So, I'm not supposed to smile,
Mashallah.
but what to do, right? It's difficult to
Yeah,
control this.
yeah, mashallah, mashallah.
MashaAllah. So Alhamdulillah, Jazakumullah khairan, Ustaz. So it's very nice to get to know you a bit more personally, mashallah. So inshallah, let's get to the topic of the discussion of this evening, and that is the living with the mercy of Allah.
Yes.
So Ustaz, you've been sharing a lot on the spiritual cure, which is Al-Fatiha, and that really brought a lot of depth to appreciation of the surah, which we recite, as you reminded us, at least 17 times a day. In Ramadan, perhaps it will be 30, 40, perhaps even more in a day. And I think this is something, like when you highlighted that this is the greatest surah from the Quran, I feel that's something, a point that we tend to take for granted sometimes. Like I remember recently, on a lighter note, my friend, he posted on his Facebook page that because everybody cannot go to the masjid, so the wives are complaining that the husbands are reciting the same short surah again and again and again. So, but on the other hand, they also recite Al-Fatiha, which is actually the greatest surah, again and again and again. And I thought about this, like, if there was an author who wrote more than 100 books and he declared that this one was the best one, our attitude towards it will not be the same as the other books. And in this case, like, out of 114 surah, walillahil mathal a'la, Allah, with Allah is the best of examples. But yeah, he said that this is the best surah, and I feel that that's a great blessing that we have taken for granted sometimes.
Yes, I mentioned, I think in the first Merciful Monday, that
Yeah.
can you imagine that we do recite the surah at least 17 times a day? During Ramadan, for those of if we're praying Taraweeh and we pray anywhere from 8 to 20 rak'ahs, then you're adding 16 to 40 more times.
Yeah.
And it's a surah that subhanallah, we don't get tired of reciting it. You'd think that you recite it so often, but if you ask somebody to just recite Surah Fatiha, they'll be like, "Oh, that's easy. Yeah, sure, I'll do it." They don't shy
Yeah.
away from it. If
Yeah.
if I tell you right now, Brother Faisal, recite to me the ayat um, of inheritance from Surah An-Nisa, then people will be like,
I'm
you
sweating
know,
already.
they think like, oh, subhanallah, I why, excuse me? It's like they can't, they feel taken aback by it. But we never get tired of the surah, and you you can see that even if we haven't really thought about and contemplated what the surah really means, it's still from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings that this is the surah that he chose to be the opening chapter of the Quran, that we are to recite in our salah, uh, in every rak'ah of every salah, and we don't get tired of it. And the one of the reasons why it's hands down the greatest surah, or at least I feel that way, is because one of the names given to the surah is Ummul Kitab, Ummul Quran, or Ummul Kitab, the mother of the Quran, or the mother of the book. And of course, in the family unit, right, the greatest member of that unit is the mother, because without the mother is the one who's under whose feet heaven lies, and we have to love and respect our mother 3 times more than the father, or meaning that she gets preference first 3 times, and then the father. But it's given such a lofty title, as in mother of the book, or mother of the Quran. And so just from this title alone, right? No other surah has a title like this, right? Maybe Surah Rahman, people appreciate this surah a lot. So maybe Surah Yasin. Some people say the heart of the Quran is Surah Rahman. The jewel, or the jewel of the Quran is Surah Yasin. And they give these titles, and other things like Ayatul Kursi, and the last verses of Surah Baqarah and Surah Al Kawthar. These are treasures from underneath the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Surah Fatiha is amongst those ayat and surahs as well. And on top of that, it has this title.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first few surahs revealed. So it's just nobody really thinks about it because it's a short surah, because
Mm.
it's the first surah we memorize, because like we spoke about this before off camera, that this is something that people may even take for granted because it's something that children memorize, and people think that, oh, if this is something for kids, then they inherently see it as being trivial, right?
Yeah, that's
Not that
true. Yeah,
they don't do it on purpose, but it's just from our
yeah.
nature
It's
that if
subconscious.
yeah, if
Yeah.
a kid can do it, then yeah, and it's something easy, like it's something that it's not worth taking into too much consideration. But
Mm.
because for Muslims, seeking knowledge or trying to gain knowledge or appreciating knowledge, it has no age limit, right? It has no
Mm.
age group, and there's no knowledge that's for kids only. There's no knowledge. There's some knowledge that's for adults only, but mainly for the kids. There's no knowledge that is only for children. If you're
Mm.
an adult and you don't know how to read the Quran,
Mm.
then you have to start from the same place as the children. You have to start
Yeah.
from the qaida and learn alif ba ta. There's no way around it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some
There's no shame in that either, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no shame in that either. You're learning to read a language, and you have to start from baby steps. Uh, you can't just jump to a higher level and expect to pick up whatever you jumped over. That's not how it works. So, uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we can't feel shy. We can't feel shy in gaining knowledge, even if it's something that may seem something that children are doing. So
Yeah.
uh,
I
yeah
love the point
so
that you said that it's a surah where the more you learn about it, the sweeter it gets when you recite it in your salah. And I think that's a good takeaway from the series that you've been sharing so far. Like, it should inspire in us, like even after Ramadan, to learn more about the surah which we recite so many times a day, because the more we learn about it, the more we appreciate it. Because Ustadh, I just got to know as well that Ibn Qayyim wrote a book, Madarijus Salikin,
mhm,
that
mhm.
it's only about Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And this
Yes.
book, I found the Indonesian translation online, and it's 500
Oh,
pages.
mashallah.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
the PDF is 500 pages just on Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. So there's just so much to this surah that we don't know, and the more we recite it, the more meaning it has, because there's a wisdom why Allah tells us to recite it so many times in a day, that all these reminders are
Mhm,
to get us back on track, the reminders of our goal and so on. And I think one of the things that really blew me away was the hadith about the hadith Qudsi, that Allah said that I have divided the prayer into two, for my slave and for me. And whenever my
mhm.
slave says Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Allah will respond and say that my slave has praised me. And when I thought
Yes.
about this hadith, I thought it's amazing, because this basically means that when you're reciting Fatiha, this is your private time between you and Allah. It doesn't matter how many
Mhm,
millions and billions of Muslims are praying right at this moment. Allah is speaking to you and listening to you right now. I thought that's amazing, because even in our dunya, it's difficult to get time from, let's say, your CEO, or for the king, or for the prime minister, or the president. But this is Rabbul Alameen, like this interacting with you right now. So I think it's just an amazing honor that Allah has given us, that sometimes we take for granted this one.
yes, and like you said, there's something that goes with knowing what you're reading, that adds to your khushu in salah, and it adds to the good feelings you get when reciting the Quran, and your connection to the Quran, which is why I personally believe that every single Muslim, it doesn't matter if you're a layperson or not, but you should at least, you have to know how to read the Quran, of course, but you should try your best to learn as much Arabic as possible as well. Because, of course, the Quran was sent down in Arabic. The Prophet ﷺ was an Arab. His companions were Arabs, right? Very, very, very few were not. Majority of them were Arabs. And then when Islam spread to the other lands, those people in those lands took it upon themselves to try and learn Arabic. Right? You look at so many of the major scholars of hadith; they're not Arabs.
It's
They're
true, isn't it?
from
MashaAllah. Yeah.
they're from Khurasan
From
and Persia
Baghdad.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and subhanallah,
Yeah.
and even the it did come to a point where certain non-Arab nations that became Muslim were adopting the Arabic alphabet, right? I believe even in parts of Southeast Asia, they even use the Arabic alphabet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. True, true. Yep.
True, and because I was so surprised, I never knew this, but subhanallah, this is one of the blessings and something that people don't realize when you go to study at an international university. You meet people from all around the world, and Medina is an
Oh,
international university. And
yeah.
I had a classmate from the Philippines, and growing up in America, there's a lot of Filipinos, but they're the they're usually Christian, right? So um, I never met many Muslim Filipinos. Right? Maybe if they had converted, but none of them. I never met any that were born Muslim. But
Okay.
my
Oh,
classmate, he's from the Muslim part of the Philippines, and
right.
then one day we were taking a class. It's called Hadr al-Alam al-Islami, right? Basically, like Islam around the world. And when it spoke about the Philippines, it mentioned that they use some Arabic in some of their languages, and even with writing. And I was honestly surprised by that, and my classmate, he was like, yeah, we do, like my language, we do this. I was like, oh wow, subhanallah, like it's they that's how important Arabic became to all of these Muslim peoples around the world. And of course, with like colonialization and whatnot, and in the modern era, people look to become what's the correct word? Like Europeized, or become the trend towards becoming more like the Europeans. So you
Right.
adopt more of the things they do and their languages, and because Great Britain colonized majority of the world, people tend to look towards English now. But as Muslims, as global citizens, yes, English is important. I'm an American. I grew up speaking English. It has many benefits for me around the world, right? It's like I can speak English, so that benefits me around the world. I can speak Bengali, and
Oh, why can you?
that-
MashaAllah.
everywhere. Yeah, my parents are from Bangladesh, so
Oh,
you
MashaAllah.
can find someone from Bangladesh anywhere in the world. Me and my wife were in Europe, and we found Bengali workers there, so we would just ask them for help. Like it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
MashaAllah.
it's most random thing, but mashallah, my people are everywhere. Like so, and speaking Arabic, can help you as well. But as a Muslim, speaking Arabic is, or learning to at least to understand,
Yeah, yeah.
comprehend Arabic, is one of the most important things we can do, and this is a key to unlocking the rest of revelation, whether it's the Quran or the Sunnah, and
Mm.
it takes you to a higher level of understanding when it comes to the religion. So for those who really want to take it to the next level, right? English does not do it justice, because there's not enough depth in the language, and there's not enough stuff that's translated, or that you can, stuff gets lost in translation, right?
Oh,
As the
yeah, yeah, it
phrase
does.
goes.
Yeah.
So really, dedicating yourself to learning Arabic is one of the best things that you can do, and then you can really taste the sweetness of the Quran and the Sunnah, especially in prayer. That feeling that you get. And I've heard this from more than one person, so I know it's not just me. But that feeling that you get when it finally clicks, where you're in salah, and you don't even realize it, but once you
MashaAllah.
once you do once you
Beautiful.
do it's like the floodgates open, that you're in
SubhanAllah.
salah, and then maybe you're praying behind an imam, and then you understand what the imam is saying.
Yeah,
You know,
mashallah.
it's a different feeling, and I don't remember exactly what moment and when, but I still remember the feeling. I remember that I was standing in Masjid Nabawi, and I was praying behind the imam, and he was leading. It was one of the salat jahriya, so it was reading out loud, so it was either Maghrib or Isha. And I just remember standing there, and then once he started reciting, it's like, I know what he's saying. And when you
Mm,
really when
yeah,
you
mashallah,
really
beautiful.
and after dedicating time to learning the language, once it clicks, you also feel validated at that point that everything that I did up until
Oh,
this point,
mashallah.
is starting to show its fruit, right? It's starting to show its whatever I've gained from it. We planted the seed so long ago, but now finally you see like the tiny sprout coming out of the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that moment, because
Yeah, because I wanted to the point that you mentioned earlier. Like we do memorize Fatiha when you were young, but we sometimes we don't know what it means. But of course, the whole idea about being a Muslim is that knowledge doesn't stop there. Like you have to upgrade your knowledge, and then as you grow older, then you start to understand what even the word Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin means. And once that meaning clicks to you, like you said, Subhanallah, it just brings a different level of khushu' and appreciation that you have been reciting the surah for many years before, but having this understanding now just gives this greater feeling of wow, this is amazing stuff.
Yeah, and the fact that if you want, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. That's the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions for a
Mashallah.
successful believer, to have khushu in your salah. And in order to have khushu in your salah, you have to understand what you're saying. You don't understand what you're saying, then you can't fake it. You can't fake your khushu, right? You can't just stand there with your eyes closed, and then you start rocking back and forth, and then you think you have khushu. Like that's not how it works, because one, it's not even liked to pray with our eyes closed, right? The Prophet ﷺ used to look down at the place of sujud, and in order to truly have khushu, you have to understand what you're saying, and in order to understand what you're saying, you have to learn Arabic to some extent.
Very good, mashallah. So, Ustadh, let's what one of the ayat that we want to focus on most on this in this session, inshallah, is on the attributes of Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.
Yes.
So, as a minimum, we'll recite Fatiha 17 times a day, and that means that the attributes of Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim will be recited twice that, because we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and then Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. So it's
Mhm.
really at least 34 times, and in Ramadan it's probably 100 or even more for many of us,
Mhm.
mashallah. So let's talk a bit about the mercy of Allah. And for example, let's look into the context of what we are facing today in this pandemic, this coronavirus. It's such a big tragedy. The millions of lives are affected. We have thousands of deaths. People have lost their jobs, and in many countries, divorce rates have skyrocketed. And
Yeah.
people are wondering, where is the mercy of Allah in this? So
Mm.
perhaps maybe you can share some perspective, because sometimes it looks like a simple question, but because people have difficulty reconciling these calamities and tragedies and reconciling that with the mercy of Allah, sometimes it makes them lose faith. So maybe you can bring us some perspective on how these different events actually, how can we look at them with the respect to understanding the mercy of Allah?
Okay, so talking about like tragedy in the context of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy is always one that people do think about, especially because you always hear that God is merciful, and God is forgiving, and God is kind, and God is gentle. And especially from a context, if you grow up around Christians, this is the only way they view God, really, right? As being,
Mm,
forgiving and kind, and gentle, and merciful. And that, if you put your faith in God and Jesus Christ, and then salvation awaits you, and all these things. But the reality is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he describes himself as merciful. This is how he describes himself. So he is the embodiment of all types of mercy, and that he is capable of all types of mercy, and he is capable of giving all types of mercy, which is why he says Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. At the same time, that doesn't mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not test the believers, and it also doesn't mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test us with fear and with hunger and other calamities, but glad tidings to those who are patient. Right? And those are the people, the people who are patient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allaha ma'as-sabirin. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with those who are patient. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he continues to test us time and time again. And we ourselves, we cannot say what is the test, what is the punishment. Right? That's wisdom that is, and knowledge that is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he also punishes. And there's many examples of this for the people who rejected the message from all of the prophets that are mentioned, all whose stories are mentioned in the Quran. The people who rejected them, they were met with a harsh punishment. And when a calamity befalls the people, it's not like if there's a massive flood, that doesn't mean that the waters are going to go around the Muslim, right? The water is going to still hit you as well, right? And from a Muslim or a believer falling into any of these tragedies or calamities, let's say that with the current pandemic that's going on, somebody that's a good Muslim, they're a believer, they pray 5 times a day, they give lots of charity, they do everything that a mu'min is supposed to do, right? But they get sick, they catch the virus, and they pass away because of this. Does that mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not merciful? Does that mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was punishing this person? Right? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't necessarily mean, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he was punishing that person. We don't know what could have happened. Maybe this sickness, which when we get sick, it's a form of expiation of our sins. Okay, it's a form of cleansing us of our sins, right? Maybe he got this sickness and it was maybe the lightest form, but he still passed away from whatever complications. But maybe it was cleansing away his sins, right? Because we all sin, and even it doesn't matter how good of a Muslim or mu'min you are. We all sin in some fashion, right? We're not angels, right? The reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes his mercy and his forgiveness and his acceptance of our repentance is because we make mistakes and we fall into certain bad deeds or certain sins or certain bad habits, and it's in order for and we do it often, right? Because this is the nature of man. So and it's the nature of man to fall into it because of shaitan, not that it's in our nature to sin, right? But it's in our nature to fall for the traps of shaitan, because that's just, we were created weak, right? Like I said, we're not angels. We're not programmed to only worship and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are meant to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whenever these things happen. And this is from day one, right? From the story of Adam and Hawa alayhim as-salam. They made a mistake, right? They fell into shaitan's trap. But what did they do? As they were being kicked out, shaitan became even more arrogant, and he blamed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for him being kicked out. But then what did Adam and Eve do? They made dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired them to make dua. رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have wronged ourselves. Right? Because at the end of the day, it does come from us. We we still have the freedom of choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with that freedom of choice. He knows what choice we're going to make, but it's still up to us to make that choice. Right? So, and
Mashallah.
this also has a lot to do with people trying to wrap their minds around the concept of qadr, because then
Oh, okay.
they think that everything's predetermined,
Right.
and it is. But when it comes to qadr, right, the best way to explain it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's going to happen, and He knows how it's going to happen. And if it were to happen in any other way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that as well. Right? So that means from the infinite possibilities, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all of them. And this is something that is hard for a human brain to wrap its mind around. Right? Which is why so many people who base their outlook of the world on science, they cannot grasp the concept of a higher being that is capable of this, because science is based on human observation, and human observation is very limited because we as humans are limited. We don't even use the full capacity of our brains.
Sure.
Right? It's only what, like 10%? We only use like 10% of our brains or something like this.
Something like that.
We don't even use the full capacity of our brains, and yet we're trying to understand everything in the cosmos. So that it's, at some point you just have to realize that there has to be some type of higher being behind all of this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His mercy and decree, all of these things happen, whether it's a natural disaster or a pandemic, or you see these, it's not the first time, and it probably won't be the last time. You see examples throughout history,
Yeah, that's a good point.
from
Yeah.
the stories of the prophets, from the history of the world. You see examples of these, and
Yep.
even within them, the plague hit during the time of the companions,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
and
Mashallah.
many major companions passed away.
That's
Right?
true.
Abu Ubaidah ibn
Ah,
al-Jarrah, he
yep.
was said, it was actually said that because he was so close to Umar radiallahu anh, and because he was such um, he was such a great companion. He was one of the 10 guaranteed paradise, and he was so close to all of the major companions. It was said that had he not passed away, he may have been chosen to be the next Khalifa after Umar radiallahu anh.
All right.
This is
Mashallah.
this is something that is mentioned, and but he passed away from the
He
plague.
passed away.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was punishing them, or He wasn't being merciful towards them. Like
Oh, yeah.
he was guaranteed paradise. He was guaranteed paradise. So what greater mercy is there from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than this?
Yeah.
Allowing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to
Sallallahu alaihi
guarantee
wasallam.
certain people paradise. So
Mashallah.
we have to realize that within tragedy, we may not see the wisdom behind it, but anytime any type of tragedy or affliction befalls us, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. The glad tidings are with those who are patient. So it is not our job, especially during a trial or a tribulation, it's not our job to try and analyze, why is this happening? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to be patient during this time. Being patient means that we are being steadfast in all of our daily rituals that involve worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even our own personal lives. We have to just do it within the limits and the scope of whatever is going on around us.
Yeah.
And we have to be patient and turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to turn to Him. Right? Maybe enough people weren't turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So
That is a good
when
point. Yeah.
a
Subhanallah.
mass pandemic or something that affects everybody around the world, because
Oh,
usually
yeah.
when we hear about tragedies, it's somewhere far away and we don't know what's going on over
Oh,
there or
yeah.
how those people are doing. But this is something that affects the entire world.
Yeah.
And now you can imagine people from all faiths are probably turning to their God, and
Subhanallah.
the ones that worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims are turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, probably much more so than they would have at any other point in their life. So this is
Mm,
just, we have to, our job is to be patient during trials and tribulations. If it's a punishment, then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. And if it's a trial, we still ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and have mercy on us and give us patience to be able to get through these trials.
I mean, I really love your point about Abu Ubaidah, because yes, he was a companion who was promised paradise, and he was the place that he was in. It was infected by the plague. I remember there was once even Omar attempted to bring him back, and then
Yeah.
he told Omar, "Is like, I know why you want me to go back, but no, I'm the Prophet
Yeah,
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told me to
that's
stay."
when the hadith was narrated about plagues, right? That's when.
Ah, yeah, and I really love that point, because this really shows that just because you are infected with the disease, it's definitely not a sign that Allah hates you, or or that you're a sinner, because this is the best of people, Abu Ubaidah. Like, and as you
Yeah.
mentioned, like, he could have been the next Khalifa, Allahu A'lam. And I think what you mentioned is very, very important as well, is that every pain, every patience that we bear through disease and hardship and pain, all of these are a means that Allah removes our sins, expiates our sins, and I believe in the hadith says raises our rank in Jannah as well. And I think it's so amazing if we look at it from this perspective, and we can change the paradigm, that it actually becomes an opportunity for us. And I remember reading a quote from Ibn Qayyim. He says that because this disease is something that's such a big mercy from Allah, when you see it from the perspective of the akhirah, sometimes a slave, Allah loves a slave so much that there's no other way that Allah can bring that slave closer to Him other than Allah make make that slave fall sick, so that Allah can raise his rank in paradise. So I thought it was such an amazing and deep quote.
Subhanallah.
I remember, I can't remember who was it, Sheikh Ibn Taymin or Sheikh bin Baz, who died of cancer, I think. I think it was Sheikh Ibn Taymin. And his students were like, "Oh, Sheikh, no, it's like," they were saying, they're sort of like saying, "Oh, it's unfortunate that you got this disease." And then he answered them, and he said, like, "Why are you cursing something that is a means that Allah wants to elevate my rank in Jannah?" I thought, wow, that's so. This is the one who's facing that cancer now, but the way he's looking at it is a completely different paradigm. And so I think, like, what I can take from this is that we can really only appreciate the mercy of Allah if we look at it from the perspective of the akhirah. If we only look at it from this dunya, these tragedies will look like, okay, what's going on? I mean, for example, the tsunami, right? The one that hit Aceh, I think what, a decade ago, more than a decade ago. People are wondering, like, oh, majority are Muslims that died. Like, where is the mercy of Allah in that? So if you were to look from this dunya perspective, it may seem like that. But if you think about the fact that, as like, for example, the hadith says that the one who dies through a building crushing them is a form of a reward of a shaheed. And if you think about it, all these people who died because of those tragedies, it's kind of like a green ticket to Jannah. And it's not even of their own efforts. And if they died upon La ilaha illallah, alhamdulillah, so that is a mercy. And if you think about it, our life in this world, we live a few decades, and then because of that free ticket, you go to Jannah, khalidina fiha abada. And that's the perspective that we should remind ourselves when it comes to reconciling these tragedies.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, what you said about viewing our lives from the scope of the akhirah and not from the dunya is also ties into what I said a couple of weeks ago, where we have to our outlook on life has to be through the perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, because you have to look at the silver linings and things, right? And in order to do that, you have to be patient throughout whatever is going on, so that you can look back at it. And they say hindsight is 20/20, so you can look back and see that. And of course it's up to us to know these things as well. If we don't know, if we've never learned the hadith about the different types of people that are considered shaheed, then we may just look at it as that, oh, this person, they died so tragically, how could this happen? But
Yeah,
You can see it as Allah subhanahu, if you die a peaceful natural death, then of course that can be a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in dying in a state where you can be considered shaheed is a greater honor. Like you mentioned, this is
yeah,
something that
subhanallah.
elevates your status in not in this life, but definitely in the hereafter. So yeah, that's a really good point. You put the two together. You look at life through the scope of the akhirah, right? You keep the akhirah in mind. Every step you take should be a step you're moving forward in the akhirah, or I guess moving up, right, in the akhirah.
Right. Moving on,
And
yeah.
and everything that you do, every step you take should be from viewing it through Allah's mercy, because it's what kind of life would it be really if you didn't? Right?
Yeah,
If you're always just thinking everything's a tragedy, everything is this, everything is bad, everything is terrible, then that's not a fulfilling life, and that's not a happy life.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think that we always have to remember the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said Allah has divided His rahmah into 100 parts, and He descended one part of that
yeah,
rahmah, and because of that, all the creation are loving each other because of that one part. And He
yeah,
said towards the end of the hadith, the 99 parts of Allah's rahmah are reserved on Yawmul Qiyamah. So if we
yeah.
think about it, this love that we see around us, and there's a lot of it, alhamdulillah, and but despite all that, put them all together, multiply by them, you cannot even imagine in our own minds how that will be. That's the mercy that you should be expecting on Yawmul Qiyamah, and that's what we as Muslims should be always optimistically looking forward to.
Yes, and I had mentioned this. I wanted to save it for my last talk for today, but I just had to mention it. And I mentioned it last week, where one of my good friends, he said himself that, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man jaa bil hasanati falahu ashru amthaliha. You get 10 rewards for doing a good deed, and you get one, it's counted as one for doing a bad deed. So when you come on the day of judgment with your account, if your account happens to be equal, that means in life you sinned 10 times more than you did good. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, right? That one, if you want to put a number, if you want to try and put a number on that one part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, He allowed us to sin 10 times more than we did good.
Subhanallah.
So our bad deeds are definitely, in that situation, are 10 times more than our good deeds. So
Subhanallah.
what if it's close? That means that throughout life we're just constantly committing bad deeds, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with His mercy, He says, "Wa rahmati wasi'at kulli shay." Right? My
MashaAllah.
mercy is more vast and more is wider and more vast and all encompassing than anything in the world, right? Anything in the world.
I actually love your point that you said that hindsight's 2020, because even if we look from the perspective of dunya as well, actually, in fact, that this situation has brought a lot many good as well, as you can see. Like as you said, the classes online, there's so many good beneficial
Mhm.
classrooms that people have benefited from, that otherwise, if it weren't for this scenario, it would not be made available for them. So it's really triggering the Muslims on how they can benefit the ummah even more. And one thing that I found to be really amazing was the charity drives that have been
Mhm.
initiated so far. Even though the movement's restricted, but somehow this online transfers thing is going
Mhm.
really, really massive, and a lot of people are benefiting people worldwide. And that has given us the building blocks in such a way that in the future, if something does happen again, may Allah protect us from that. But if it does happen again, we kind of know where to start from, and then it can only improve from there. So I think, like, even if we look at these simple things, that there's a lot of benefit from that as well.
Yes, yes, true. And subhanAllah, charity, once again, the internet, right? The internet made this possible.
Oh,
So
amazing. Yeah.
being able to do online transfers and being able to, send whatever amount of money you can, and the click of a button, subhanAllah, was able to make this all happen. So subhanAllah.
Yeah,
We
mashallah.
just,
So, Ustadh, we have just about 10 minutes to go, inshallah. So, we're talking about the mercy of Allah. So I think we
Mm-hmm.
want to remind ourselves again that Ramadan in and of itself is a huge mercy of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps you can maybe just let's remind ourselves again, what is this mercy that we can be expecting from Ramadan? Because what tends to happen is we learn about the virtues of Ramadan in the beginning, right? Then after
Yeah.
that, we kind of be Laylatul Qadr, and we may have forgotten. So let's just remind ourselves again about this great mercy and rahmah that we should be expecting from this month.
Yes. So very quickly, Ramadan, of course, Ramadan is the month of fasting, the month of the Quran, the month of mercy, the month of charity. Right? People throw on all these different attributes to Ramadan, but they're all tied together, right? Because Ramadan, first and foremost, Ramadan is the month of the Quran, because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, "Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran." He mentions, the only time he mentions the word Ramadan, the month of Ramadan by name, is with the Quran, right? So, and and because it's the month of the Quran, we fast. So because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, "فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ." Right? We fast because the Quran was revealed in this month and we witnessed that month. So and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala commands us to fast in that month. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala commands us to fast so that we can gain taqwa and so that we can be thankful. And Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, He prescribed fasting because you think about it, one of the what's the right word? If you look at it from the fact that why is fasting the action that is prescribed during the month of Ramadan, and you can see Allah's mercy within this analysis, because fasting is one of those deeds that keeps you away from other sins. It's one of those deeds that nobody else can tell if you're fasting or not,
Yeah.
right? You could like I could just cover my camera and take a quick sip of water and you wouldn't know.
Actually, I
Like
can.
you can, but like if I left the screen and I went and drank some water, nobody would know. But only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Fasting is the deed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself describes as being for him. It is only for him. There's no way to even show it off unless you verbally say so. Oh, I'm fasting. Look at me, right? I'm fasting every day. This is something that's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why its reward is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then on top of that, it it also encourages us to do other good deeds, because the hunger that we feel from fasting and the heightened awareness that we have from fasting, reminds us that, hey, I'm hungry because I'm fasting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There's some
So
people who live like this.
what's yes, and what's the point of me feeling this hunger if I'm not praying, if I'm not, giving charity, if I'm not fulfilling my duties and the rights other people have upon me, right? Then you're just starving yourself for no reason. But fasting reminds you of these things, and
Yeah.
these are all things that help you increase in your taqwa. And these are all things that, like you said, some people around the world live like this every day, so it
Mm.
increases you in your gratitude.
Yeah.
And on top of that, every good deed we do is multiplied by 10.
Yeah. Subhanallah.
And if you want to quantify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's one part of mercy in this life even more, during Ramadan, it's multiplied by 70. Right? And then, you can look at the numbers that have been mentioned in the Sunnah. If one good deed is 10, and then during Ramadan it's multiplied by 70, and then some people say between 70 and 700, and but the most accurate or the most authentic narration is 70. And then let's say that you pray the salah in jama'ah at home. That's another 27 times, right? So you start getting into the thousands at this point, right?
Mm. Subhanallah.
And and yes, our bad deeds are also magnified during the month of Ramadan, but the amount of good that we're doing is going to outweigh the bad, because we're doing all of this while fasting. And and everyone around us, we know the Muslims around us should be fasting, and we have husnul dhan on them. We have benefit of the doubt, and we think that yes, they are fasting, right?
Mm.
It helps build this, just it feels like a snowball effect where you start at day one of Ramadan, and then it just keeps tumbling down the slope, and you're going downwards, right? It feels like Ramadan, and it doesn't feel like something overbearing and overwhelming. That's why it's like a slope. You're going down because it's easy to go down the
Mm.
slope instead of going up, right?
Yeah.
So and it just keeps getting bigger and growing and rolling faster, and then the last 10 nights come, and then you just want to go even faster so that you can reach the bottom, so that you
Yeah.
can reach the bottom. And from the mercy of this month from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tells us from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that if you fast in this month, and if you stand in night prayer in this month, and if you stand for Laylatul Qadr in this month, and you have iman, and you seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reward, then all of your past sins are forgiven.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. I really love that point that you said, that Allah reserved the reward for the ones fasting, because the beginning of the hadith, the Prophet said that all your good deeds, when you have that good intention and you do it, it's multiplied 10 to 700 times, except
Mhm.
for fasting, meaning that it's actually more than that. And that's
Yeah.
why in the other hadith it said that for the ones who's fasting, that there are two happy moments for him. One is for iftar, which okay, we all know that. The second one is when he meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the rewards are so great. I think
Yes.
about this is like, because we as Muslims, it's our purpose of life is to worship Allah. And if Allah wanted to, He just tell us to fast, and there's no reward in it. But the
Yeah.
fact that we do it and there's such a great reward, I mean, that's another aspect of mercy that we really should be reminding ourselves.
Definitely, yes.
So, Ustadh,
And
I love your point about the rolling snowball effect. So, but what I am personally worried is, instead of that snowball getting bigger and faster, we start slowing down because we get tired. So maybe if
yeah,
you
yeah,
can,
it's not a perfect slope, right? It goes, and then maybe it does this for a little bit, but then it starts going back down, inshallah.
it could. So perhaps maybe with these remaining few days, I guess we have about 4 days, inshallah. What maybe you can share some tips on how we can finish off on a high, and how we can make sure that we don't waste these next few days, inshallah.
Yeah, so I keep telling people that you have to see it as a marathon race, right? You don't it's not a sprint. But now, because we're near the finish line, we have to start sprinting. We have to start
Oh
running as
yeah.
fast as we can.
Yeah.
And we want to do it in a way where we don't pull a hamstring, or we don't want to literally break a leg. We want to make sure that we are sprinting, but we have good form, right? We don't want to be sloppy and mess up, because when you do that, you get injured. So we have to increase in our ibadah, and specifically during the nighttime, because this is when it's Laylatul Qadr, right? It's not Naharatul Qadr, right? It's Laylatul Qadr. We have to
The night.
seek the night of power, the night of decree, right?
Very
So
good.
we have to be smart about it, and rest enough during the day, and
Yeah, that's
maybe do those good deeds or acts of worship or ibadah that we can do, that's not so physically taxing. Like maybe we, instead of reciting the Quran, we can listen to it during the day, and save the recitation for night, and
ah,
maybe and like giving maybe giving half. If you separated your charity into 10 for the 10 nights, maybe you give half of that 10, right? Maybe like so at like a 1/20th, right? So divide into 20, maybe at the click of a button, right? It's very easy. You just donate it, or you
yeah,
can automate your donations now. You
yeah,
just have
yeah.
it done automatically.
Yeah.
or listen to some podcasts or lectures online. This is a form of ibadah because you're doing it in
That's
order to
true,
get
actually.
closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah,
Right?
even
You're not,
yeah.
although there may be some entertainment value in it, you're not really doing it for true entertainment, right? It's not like
Oh,
you're
yeah,
watching a movie, but you're just these things during the day so that you have enough energy at night, right? And even take a nap, if you even take a nap with the intention, right, you with the intention that you want to increase your ibadah at nighttime, that nap itself becomes an act of ibadah,
ah,
because
yeah.
your intention was formed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And then
Oh,
you go to sleep, you say Allah bismika Allahumma amut wa ahya, so you do it in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's subhanallah, it's so beautiful. Your intention plus whatever specific dua is prescribed to that action can turn these normal actions that we have into acts of ibadah.
yeah, mashallah, very
Right,
good.
these are mustahab or mandub actions. They're required or they're encouraged, but we can turn them into ibadah just by our intention and our whatever dua that goes with it. So, and then read more Quran, pray more. If you're going to pray, you can pray tarawih after Isha, and then you can wake up again and pray tahajjud or qiyam al-layl right before Fajr, and that's increasing in your prayer as well. And give more charity, do more dhikr, all of these things. You want to sprint, you want to go 100%, but make sure
Yeah,
that we maintain good form, right? We
yeah.
need to make sure we maintain good form.
That's a good point, actually, because as they say, during a 100-meter sprint, it's the last 10 meters that counts. And I think it was a scholar that said, I think it was Ibn Jawzi, who said the
Ibn
racehorse.
al-Jawzi, yeah, he said the racehorse
Yeah, the
knows when it's
racehorse.
near the finish line, right?
Yeah, so when it goes near the finish line, it's going to speed up. So he said, don't let the racehorse be smarter than you.
Yeah.
Subhanallah. And the good thing is that I see a silver lining here because we're all in quarantine mode. So during Eid, we can't visit anyone anyway. So I guess we can spend the rest of the 8 days just recovering from the last 10
Yeah, yeah.
meters. So we can go all out now. And
Recovery is just as important as the race itself.
that's the race itself, mashallah, mashallah. And I think I just wanted to, I always remind myself this, that the Prophet ﷺ said that in Ramadan, every night Allah has slaves who he frees from the hellfire. And this
Mhm.
happens every night. So I think what tends to happen is every year, I feel like this. There's always a point in Ramadan that I feel like I haven't done enough. But this hadith should remind us that even the remaining days, those days could be the ones that we are chosen by Allah. So I think this
Yes.
should motivate us and not feel down from our previous performance. And I think one of the things as well, because the women especially who have menses, they have a worry like they can't maximize these 10
Mm.
nights. But in fact, there are so many things that they can do. The only thing they can't really do absolutely is salah.
Yeah.
And one of the things I try to remind the ladies, like sometimes they get a bit distressed about this, is I think the fact that you wake up your family to pray, those who can
Mhm.
pray, to assist them in their ibadah, that in and of itself entitles you to the reward as well.
Yes, yes, of course. Because if the one who, indicates or helps somebody or directs somebody towards a good deed, has a share in that good deed. Right? This is
Yeah.
a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ.
So
So even for all the women out there, if you want a share in your family's fasting or their prayer or anything like that,
go
then
for it.
if you prepare the food for them, and they should also try and get the men to help out as well, so that they can get a share as well. So
Yeah, mashallah.
don't leave all the cooking and cleaning and waking up to the women of the household. The men
Yeah.
can share in it as well. And in the last 10 nights, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to tighten his apron or his belt, and he would basically do that so that he could work even harder in the
Uh,
last 10 nights. And of course, this was mostly in worship, but the Prophet ﷺ would also fulfill all of his obligations and all of the rights of the community and his household as well. So um, I believe there was one more. I know there's no time for Q&A, and I apologize to all the listeners out there if you had any questions. But inshallah, you have the rest of the week. Maybe they can save your questions for, of course, even more qualified people than myself, for with the other speakers, inshallah.
Sure, inshallah. So yeah, we like to close with one final discussion point. So what advice do you have for us, for the listeners, on after Ramadan, as we finish Ramadan?
If we, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to witness post Ramadan, of course, the the Prophet ﷺ said that to follow up the fast of Ramadan with 6 fasts in the month of Shawwal. And this shows you that he didn't say, pray Taraweeh for 6 nights, or do itikaf for 6 nights, or give charity for 6 nights. It's fasting. And so the one habit that we should carry between one Ramadan to the next is fasting. Right? This is the most important one, I believe, because this whole month we fasted. And what is recommended for us after this month is fasting. And if whoever fasts the whole month of Ramadan and the 6 fasts of Shawwal, it's as if they fasted the entire year. Right? So if yes, we get the reward and the blessings of having fasted the entire year if we fulfill those things. And and if we are capable of fasting for 30 days and then another 6 days, then why wouldn't we be capable of fasting throughout the year? And from the Sunnah, it's not that you fast 365 days in the year, but the Prophet ﷺ used to fast Mondays and Thursdays, and he used to fast the 3 white days. And then you have the other recommended fasting, like during Muharram and during Dhul Hijjah. And it was said, Aisha radiallahu anha narrated that the Prophet ﷺ used to increase his fasting slowly as the months went on, up to the point where he would fast almost every day of Sha'ban, except one day. Right? He wouldn't fast the last day, Sha'ban. So if one thing that we need to carry over from Ramadan, it should be fasting. And then the other habits that maybe we formed, we have to try and keep it up. We really have to try and keep it up. We have to make it a point, because what ends up happening is that people, they basically do a 180 once Ramadan's over, right? It's like, okay, shaitan has been freed, so let me bring out my inner shaitan, a'udhu billah. So no, we have to try and keep up all the things that we've been doing throughout the month. Charity, reciting Quran, adhkar, extra prayers, all of these things we should have been using this month to form those habits, right? In order to form a habit, they say it takes about like 3 weeks or something like this, or it takes 3 weeks to break a bad habit. Or sorry, I'm mixing it up. I know it's one or the other, where it takes a certain number of days to form a habit, but then it takes even longer to, I think, to break a habit. Or you know what, I'll look it up, inshallah. But
okay, mashallah.
Basically, this month is enough time for us to form these habits. If we're doing it every day, and if we're doing it sincerely, and if we're giving it our all, we should be able to make it a habit, so it becomes natural for us to do it.
Yeah.
So, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to continuously increase in our worship to Him, and to add on all of those things that are pleasing to Him, especially, the most important being prayer, and then, fasting and charity, and now that we've all been stuck at home, being able to fulfill our duties at home, fulfill our duties to our families, right? Both the man and the woman, and being able to fulfill our duties to each other, and increasing in just those things that maybe you didn't even realize that you needed to increase in. Some people, because we're at home and we have more time, some people may have realized that, hey, I didn't fast throughout the year. Now starting fasting from zero is very difficult for me. If I had the habit of fasting, it would have been a little bit easier on me. Or, hey, I didn't give charity throughout the year, so now when I'm trying to give more charity, I'm starting to second guess myself, thinking that,
true.
if you make it a habit to give even just like one even a coin, right? It doesn't even have to be like a full ringgit or a dollar, right? If you just give,
Yeah.
like 50 cents here and there, like you form the habit so that when it's time to actually give, like, okay, here I can give this, or you can prepare from before that I have this much to give because I looked at my finances, and you do it on a normal basis. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to form these habits and maintain these
I mean,
habits.
I
So
mean,
there's nothing really extra I can say that we can do to carry over to next Ramadan. We just have to look at everything we have been doing up until now, and we don't have to do it every day. We don't have to fast every day from here on out. We don't have to give charity every day from here on out, although we should try to. We don't have to pray 20 rak'ahs every night from here on out, but just maybe try and make it a point to do it at least once a week throughout the
mm,
year, and then
mm,
build up, just
build
build
up
it
from
up,
there. Very good.
instead of starting at 100 and falling down to zero. We just start
Yeah,
at
that's true.
one we start at
Yeah,
one and then we just build our way up back to 100 when we
yeah.
get back to the next Ramadan, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to witness the next Ramadan. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to witness
I mean,
many more Ramadans if that's what is best for us.
I really love your point on that. I think the takeaway point for that for me is I like to remind us, because in these times of coronavirus pandemic, people always speak about the new normal in the social
Mm-hmm.
distancing and so on. So I'd like
Yeah.
to remind the Muslims the new normal for us should be that of increase in our good deeds. That should be the new normal. So this new normal that we've been doing for the past 30 days in Ramadan, like the Quran, the fasting as you mentioned, the Qiyam, let's try and make our baseline even higher and
Mm-hmm.
improve throughout the consecutive months. And I think you pointed out something very, very important as well, because when we consistently do these deeds, at least mentally, you know that you can do it. Because
Mm-hmm.
personally, for me, Ustadh, I feel what you said. Because like if we haven't fasted for a while, that thought of can I actually fast this long? Like even though
Mm-hmm.
you've been doing it every year, but there's always this mental challenge, right? But if you've been doing it consistently, and even you've been doing qiyam consistently, like then Ramadan, it's not that difficult to add even more. So if our
Mm-hmm.
baseline has increased this year, inshallah next year, at least we can have aspirations for more. Because I think the thing that people have to realize that even when it comes to like these world-class athletes, Olympians, they're practicing like crazy before that. And then when
Yeah.
showtime comes, it's just a result of all those hours and weeks of training, which we don't see behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
those things behind the scenes that we want to really strive for after Ramadan
Yes.
comes, by the
Yes,
time Ramadan
definitely.
comes next year, inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Yes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees the effort that we put in, and He rewards us accordingly. So like you said, and I believe we spoke about this, the example of the athletes, right? Nobody can just jump into water and expect to be Michael Phelps, right? Nobody
Yeah,
Hey, nobody can just get in a boxing ring and expect to be Muhammad Ali. Right? There's
that's
there's
right.
there's so many hours and
So many
days of
hours, yeah.
intense training, and subhanallah, these are things that, yes, we have to use. We have to use Ramadan as our intense training schedule, so that the rest of the year we can function and perform at a efficient and beneficial rate.
Yeah, I think one of the points I wanted to share, Bilal Ismail, he pointed out a very nice video recently in the Al Kawthar YouTube channel, and he said, "Glad
Mashallah.
tidings to the people who did the hifz before, because now that we're in quarantine, and now you have to lead tarawih
Yeah.
in your own homes. Now the fruits of your labor, you have to see it. So probably now we're thinking like, oh man, I'm on night number 4 and I'm out of stock. So probably that should remind us next
Yeah.
year for next
No.
year, like just work towards it, like do more memorization and
Yes.
more
Yes.
muraja'ah, and by the time, and if the situation calls again, you're ready to step up because you've been proactive about the Quran. And so I think that's a really
Yes.
good
Yes.
advice.
Definitely, definitely. And of course, people think that, oh, maybe hifz is for, the younger kids. I'm too old now. But that's never an excuse, right? We should always constantly be trying to memorize more Quran, memorize more hadith. And
Yeah, absolutely.
the Prophet ﷺ says that the one who struggles with the Quran gets double the reward, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards them for reading and for their struggle. Right? The one who can
Yeah,
recite easily, it said that the angels surround them, but the one who recites but struggles, they receive double, right? Falahu ajran, they get
Mashallah.
two
Amazing.
times the ajr,
Amazing.
right? So
Yeah.
we have to appreciate the struggle, and inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to see the fruits of it, right? I mentioned that,
Inshallah. Inshallah.
it's like with learning Arabic. Once you stand in salah and it clicks that you understand what you're saying, that's like that's the fruit of it, and that's the sweetness of it. So
Yeah, amazing. I like that point that you said you're never too old to start hifz. One of my friend's mother just recently memorized the entire Quran. I think
oh,
she's about
mashallah.
60 years old. Yeah, mashallah.
Wow,
And
subhanallah.
I just wanted to share with you, Ustadh. Actually, I shared this recently. My father,
Mm,
just a couple of years back, he memorized the whole Surah Al-Kahf. He was about 63 years
mashallah.
old. So
Mashallah,
like
mashallah.
when, and then he has to manage his company and his family, and
Yeah,
he
yeah,
can
subhanallah.
and he can do it. So if he can do it, like I always remind my friends, like, guys, you don't have an excuse, right?
Also, you never know the right, the Quran is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words and his revealed to mankind, and it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you it's crazy because my grandfather, he was close to 100 years old, maybe even more than 100 years old before he passed away, and he
Oh,
he
mashallah.
he had he had some dementia, and he had trouble remembering stuff, but he never forgot a single letter of any of the Quran he memorized.
Wow,
He might not
subhanallah.
he might not know what day it is, or he might not remember how many children or grandchildren he has, but if you ask him to recite
Subhanallah.
Surah Yasin, he'd know it like this, right? Like he would
Wow.
be able to say it right away.
Oh, that's so
Once.
beautiful.
So we can't take for granted, just because of our age, the power of memorizing the Quran. Like you said, who knows if we have to lead Taraweeh again, we don't want to feel down about it because we had to, you know, recite Surah Ikhlas, 100 times during Ramadan.
Yeah, mashallah. So Jazakallah khairan, Ustadh.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have for tonight. I think we went
Yes.
slightly
Yes.
over time as well. Subhanallah. Qadar Allah ma
Yeah.
sha fa'al.
Yes. Please forgive us for going over.
Yeah,
But I guess maybe was ours was the first one, right? So maybe now they know that maybe they should give an hour and a half for this instead of just an hour. Maybe. Or
probably, yeah.
maybe we just took an hour and a half. But khair, inshallah. I hope everybody was able to benefit.
Ameen.
And once again, to the organizers, please forgive us, and to the listeners, please forgive us for not being able to take your questions. Like I mentioned, you can tune in any of the other days. Sheikh Tawfiq is on tomorrow. Hopefully, you all get a chance to ask the other speakers and the other scholars your questions as well. Bidnillahi ta'ala. Quick dua, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from all of us, to allow us all to benefit, to allow us all to maximize these last few nights, to allow us all to obtain Laylatul Qadr, to forgive us, to have mercy upon us, to forgive our parents and have mercy upon them and the rest of the Muslims, and to help the oppressed Muslims around the world, and to help those in need, and to have mercy upon those who have passed away, to have to forgive all of those who are no longer with us, to cure those who are sick, to rectify all of our affairs around as Muslims around the world, to help guide the youth and to make them righteous, and to make them the coolness of our eyes, and to give us good in this life and in the akhirah, and to save us from the punishment of the hellfire. And oh Allah, you are the one who pardons, and you love to pardon. So pardon all of us in these last few nights and throughout our lives for all of the sins that we commit. And oh Allah, you are the turner of hearts. So turn our hearts towards firmly on your religion, and you are the changer of hearts. So change our hearts towards your obedience. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please accept all of our good deeds, our fasts and our prayers and our charity and our du'as and the rest of our good deeds. and send your peace and blessings and salutations upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and his companions and those who follow them until the day of judgment. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. It was my pleasure to talk these last 4 Mondays, inshallah. This is the last Monday of Ramadan, so inshallah Eid should be sometime this weekend, depending on the moon sighting, right? So hopefully we can continue to benefit from each other. And Brother Faisal, it was my pleasure. I really enjoyed having you on. You should have like a talk show that you do, or like a podcast that you do or something. Inshallah, if you don't already have one, maybe you should. Inshallah, it'd be really great. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you very much for your time, Ustadh.
One of the organizers just said that it's been very interesting. Maybe we should do a podcast in the future. So yes, no, this was very nice. It was very nice. Candid conversations, especially revolving around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always it's always wonderful, and you're never short of things to talk about. And
in fact, Ustadh, we had to cut a lot of topics, huh? We've seen the
we did. There's still more to talk about. And any gathering in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions us to the angels, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reunite us in not in this manner over the internet, but in person in Jannah, in the companionship of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other prophets and their companions. So yeah, inshallah, if you have any closing remarks, then go ahead.
Fantastic. You covered it very well. So we'll end there, inshallah. So we'll end with the tasbih kafara, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.